Life will never take you on a road you cannot scale through, and even with a million obstacles, overcoming your fear is the key to that door of success and prosperity. Put behind you all that silly talks and hearsay that hold no truth to the reality of life. And in that moment of your meditation, picture a bigger dream and believe in it. It was a scorching day in August when James stepped off the bus and into the sprawling orientation camp in Kaduna. He squinted against the sun, wiping sweat from his brow, feeling the weight of the new world he had entered. The National Youth Service Corps was a rite of passage for Nigerian graduates, and James, despite his humble background, was determined to make the most of it. He clutched his tattered duffel bag and headed towards the registration area, where chaos reigned as hundreds of young people scrambled to get their paperwork done so they could return to their hostel. Amid the confusion, James found himself at a loss. He stared at the forms in his hand, wondering what to do next. His eyes strolling around, stealing glances at those filling their forms. He had always been bright, but bureaucracy had never been his strength. As he fumbled, a gentle voice interrupted his thoughts. "Do you need help?" James looked up to see a young woman with a warm smile and confidence. She was strikingly beautiful, her skin glowing in the harsh sunlight and her eyes sparkling kindly. She could be of great help. "Yes, please," James replied, relief washing over him as he dashed a smile. "I am Vivian," she said, quickly handling the situation. With her guidance, James's registration process became much smoother. They chatted as they moved through the lines, discovering shared interests and laughing over small jokes. Despite the heat and the chaos around them, James felt an unexpected calm in Vivian's presence. "It's a long journey from Port Harcourt. A bit of relief would do." James and Vivian sat in the camp's dining hall as the day turned to evening. The initial formality of their meeting had melted away, replaced by a burgeoning friendship. James learned that Vivian came from a wealthy family in Lagos, starkly contrasting his upbringing in a small village in Ogun State. Yet, despite their different backgrounds, they shared similar dreams and aspirations. The bond between James and Vivian strengthened quickly. They attended lectures and drills together, and their camaraderie grew each day. James admired Vivian's resilience and kindness, while Vivian was drawn to James's quiet strength and determination. Several times their eyes clocked, and they smiled cheerfully and slowly looked away. One evening, as they sat under an umbrella tree, Vivian spoke about her family's expectations. "They want me to marry someone from a similar background," she confided, her voice tinged with sadness. "But I don't care about that anymore. I want to be with someone who understands me and can build a life with me." Silence lurked for a while. "That's all that matters to me." James's heart swelled at her words, but he remained silent, unsure of the future. Rich people only want their children married to rich people. Such a mentality still exists in some families, and the best remedy is keeping off their lane. For now, he was content to be by her side, their friendship blossoming into something deeper, perhaps something neither of them had anticipated. He looked at her and smiled to clear the silence, his heart skipping beats. Deep inside James, it all ends in camp. Some friends told him a lot about falling in love in camp. They said it never ends well. If you find a friend, keep it that way because you might never see each other again after camp. Lucky are the ones posted to the same state. They stand a chance of building something solid and getting married. James hummed to his thoughts. The initial spark of friendship between them had ignited a flame of affection, causing them to always look out for each other. They spent their days attending mandatory activities and evenings sharing stories under the starlit sky after social nights. James found solace in Vivian's company. Her laughter was infectious, her optimism unwavering. She made the tough days in the camp bearable. James, in turn, became her confidant, the one she could talk to about anything and everything. Despite the stark differences in their backgrounds, They found common ground in their aspirations and dreams for the future. One afternoon, during a rigorous drill session, James noticed Vivian struggling with the physical demands. They were in Platoon 8. He quickly moved to her side, offering words of encouragement and support. Together, they pushed through the grueling exercises, their mutual support evident to everyone around them. Their camaraderie was a testament to their growing affection for each other. In the evenings, they would often escape the noise and bustle of the camp, finding a quiet spot in a small coffee shop in Mommy. There they would talk about their pasts, hopes, and fears. Vivian spoke of the pressures she faced from her family, who had high expectations and traditional views. James shared his struggles, his family's financial hardships, and his determination to lift them out of poverty through education and hard work. One evening, as they sat under an umbrella tree, Vivian turned to James, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. "I don't care about the money, James. What matters to me is finding someone who truly understands me, values the same things I do, and loves and cherishes me for who I am and not what I have." James's heart drummed as he listened to her word for word. He felt a deep connection with Vivian, transcending their worlds, a word that will never meet. He wanted to tell her how much she meant to him, but the words seemed stuck in his throat. That might just be one of those camp tricks his friends told him about, with a warning that he would never fall in love at NYC camp. As the weeks passed, their bond continued to deepen, but James's mind kept flashing back to the warnings of his friends. They faced camp challenges together, from grueling drills to tedious lectures. Their fellow corps members began to notice the closeness between them, and whispers of a budding romance spread through the camp. Some were supportive, while others were skeptical, especially those who knew of the pain rooted in falling in love in camp. Some soldiers talked about it one day when James went to Mommy to get water for himself and Vivian. Despite the murmurs, James and Vivian remained undeterred. They knew their connection was special and determined to see it through. The end of their time in camp was approaching, and with it came the uncertainty of what lay ahead. Would their bond survive the real world outside the camp's protective bubble? Only time will tell. The peaceful routine of the camp was shattered one fateful night when a wave of illness swept through the quarters. It started with a few corps members complaining of severe chest pains and fever, but within hours, it escalated into a full-blown health crisis. The camp's medical facilities were quickly overwhelmed, and panic spread like wildfire. James and Vivian were among the first to notice the severity of the situation. James had been volunteering at the camp clinic, using his limited medical knowledge to assist the overwhelmed staff. When the symptoms of meningitis began to appear in several corps members, he knew they were facing a serious outbreak. Vivian was horrified when she saw the suffering around her, but she didn't hesitate to step in and help. She and James worked tirelessly, tending to the sick and comforting the frightened. They moved from bed to bed, doing whatever they could to ease the suffering of their fellow corps members. As the hours turned into days, the situation grew dire. The camp's inadequate medical supplies were quickly depleted, and more corps members fell ill. James and Vivian barely slept. Their exhaustion was evident, but their determination was unwavering. The camp administration finally declared a state of emergency, and external medical help was summoned. Despite their best efforts, the illness continued to spread. One evening, as they took a brief respite outside the clinic, Vivian turned to James with tears in her eyes. "I feel so helpless, James. We need to do more." James placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We're doing everything we can, Vivian. We just have to keep fighting." He knew the outbreak would turn out this way and protected Vivian from being a victim. Very soon it would be over, and we would all return to normal activities. Their resolve was tested further when James himself fell ill. Vivian was worried as she watched the strong, resilient James succumb to the symptoms. She refused to leave his side, tending to him with a fierce determination. It was a terrifying time for both of them, but Vivian's unwavering support kept James's spirits high. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Vivian used her family's influence to secure better medical aid. She contacted her parents, who pulled strings to ensure top-tier medical care was sent to the camp despite their lack of knowledge of her relationship with James. Within hours, a helicopter arrived, equipped with doctors and supplies. James was airlifted to a hospital in Lagos, where he received the necessary treatment. Vivian accompanied him, staying by his side throughout his recovery. Her family's connections and resources played a crucial role in James's recovery, a fact that was not lost on him. As James slowly regained his strength, he realized how deep Vivian's love and commitment ran. Despite the class divide, the challenges they faced, and the doubts in his heart, she had proven that she would stand by him through the worst times. This realization strengthened their bond but made James acutely aware of the obstacles they still had to overcome. With James on the mend, they returned to the camp, slowly recovering from the outbreak. The experience had a lasting impact on everyone, especially James and Vivian. Vivian's parents, who had been reluctantly supportive during James's illness, now insisted on meeting him. They invited James to their home in Lagos, a grand estate that seemed a world away from his humble village. James felt a mix of anxiety and determination as he prepared for the meeting, knowing that Vivian's parents held significant sway over their future. Vivian tried to reassure him as they traveled to her home. "My parents are just protective, James. They need to see what I see in you." She believes they have a future together, and James is the man of her dreams. James was overwhelmed by the luxury of Vivian's family house when they arrived after a long, tiring trip. Her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Okafor, were gracious but reserved. They politely welcomed James but kept their distance, observing him keenly. Most children from poor homes have evil intentions for mingling with the rich, and James might be one of the many. During dinner, the conversation turned to James's background and his plans. Mr. and Mrs. Okafor bombarded him with crucial questions that made him so unrelaxed. The food he ate had barely gone down his belly comfortably. He spoke honestly about his humble beginnings, determination to make a difference, and dreams of furthering his education. Vivian's parents listened but remained skeptical. He might be another gold digger trying to fool their daughter with malicious, sweet words that have infected her with affection. After dinner, Mr. Okafor requested a private conversation with James. They moved to the study, where Mr. Okafor's demeanor shifted to one of stern concern. His eyes cloaked in disapproval. He has been wondering what Vivian saw in the boy to have found him worthy of being part of their noble family. "James," he began, "I appreciate your honesty and ambition, but you must understand, my daughter comes from a different world." James lowered his face in shame. "We have certain expectations and standards." Mr. Okafor walked closer. "I don't see you meeting those expectations." He placed his hands on the boy's shoulder and said, "I am not saying you are not good. I want my daughter to have a better future." James nodded, feeling the weight of Mr. Okafor's words. "I understand, sir. But I love Vivian and am committed to building a future with her." Mr. Okafor narrowed his eyes at the boy. Perhaps James needed to get his point. Mr. Okafor sighed, his expression softening slightly. He sat on the edge of his table. "Love is important, but it's not always enough, my boy. You will face many challenges, and I must ensure you can provide for my daughter. I don't want her to live a poorly fashioned life all because she saw something in you." He was quiet for a while. "It will be a shame that my daughter is not living well." James felt a surge of determination. "I will do everything I can to ensure Vivian has the life she deserves. I have plans to apply for a scholarship abroad. I want to further my education and make a difference in my community." Mr. Okafor studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Very well. Show me you can succeed, and we will talk again." The meeting left James feeling both hopeful and anxious. He shared the details with Vivian, who hugged him tightly. "My parents will come around, James. I believe in you and know they'll see what I see." The disapproval from Vivian's parents was a new challenge for their relationship, but it also fueled James's determination to succeed. He threw himself into his work at the camp, volunteering for extra duties and studying rigorously for the scholarship applications. Vivian supported him every step of the way, providing encouragement and using her family's resources to help him prepare. She would give her life to see he meets her parents' demands. After completing their service at the orientation camp, James and Vivian were posted to different parts of the state for their primary assignments. While the distance was challenging, they remained committed to each other, making frequent visits and staying connected through phone calls and messages. The warning against falling in love is only true if both parties use each other. One evening, as James was settling into his new apartment in a small town, he received a frantic call from his younger sister Saad. Their family home in the village had been engulfed in flames, and everything they owned was lost. James's heart sank as he listened to her sobbing over the phone. That house was like everything they had. How would they live without a roof over their head? Who would they go to for help? Those thoughts raced through his mind as Saad drummed the dad's news in tears. Without hesitation, James took the next available bus to his village. The journey seemed interminable, his mind racing with worry and fear. When he arrived, he was greeted by the sight of smoldering ruins, and his devastated family huddled together, trying to salvage what little they could. James's mother embraced him, her face streaked with tears. "We've lost everything, James. All our belongings, our memories, gone." She wept over this shoulder like a child. James felt a wave of helplessness wash over him. He had worked hard to provide for his family, and now they were back to square one. But he knew he couldn't afford to despair. He needed to be strong for them. "We have not lost everything, Mom. We have not," he said consolingly as he wrapped his hands around his crying mother, patting her gently on the back. Vivian arrived the next day, her presence a beacon of hope amidst the devastation. She immediately sprang into action, using her connections to secure temporary shelter for James's family and organizing a fundraising effort among their fellow corps members and her friends back in Lagos. The outcome was a little, but it went a long way. With Vivian's help, they gathered enough resources to begin rebuilding the house. James was deeply moved by her dedication and how she rallied support for his family. He didn't expect her to take over the situation, regardless of all her parents spending on his hospital bills. It was a testament to the depth of her love and commitment to him. As they worked together to rebuild the house, James and Vivian grew even closer. The tragedy had brought them to a new level of understanding and mutual support. Vivian's parents, witnessing her unwavering dedication to James and his family, began to soften their stance. They saw the genuine love and partnership between the two and started acknowledging James's worth. Despite their progress, the experience left a lasting impact on James. He became more determined than ever to succeed and provide a stable future for his loved ones. He intensified his efforts to secure a scholarship abroad, studying late into the night and seeking advice from anyone who could help. Vivian continued to be his rock, encouraging and reminding him of his capabilities. Together, they navigated the challenges, their love as a constant source of strength and motivation. As the months passed, the new house began to take shape. It was a modest structure, but it represented hope and resilience. It was way better than what they had lost to the fire outbreak. James's family started to rebuild their lives, drawing inspiration from James's perseverance and Vivian's unwavering support. Gradually, they gathered all they had lost, and the best part was that what they had now was better off than what they had lost. Everything in the house was newly obtained. Though it was impossible to recover everything, like the lost documents, James and Vivian put heads together to visit some organizations and necessary places to ensure important documents were renewed. The months of hard work and perseverance finally paid off when James received an email that would change his life forever. As he sat in a crowded internet cafe in town, his heart pounded as he opened the message. It was from the scholarship committee of a prestigious university in the United States that informed him that he had been awarded a full scholarship to pursue a master's degree in education. James's eyes widened, and his lower lips dropped in awe. He read and reread the email, tears of joy strolling down his soft chin. That was the opportunity he had been striving for, the chance to further his education and significantly impact his community. He immediately called Vivian, his voice excitedly shaking as he shared the good news. "Vivian, I got it." His voice grabbed people's attention in the cafe. "I got the scholarship," he said excitedly. Vivian's joyous laughter echoed through the phone. "I knew you would, James. I'm so proud of you." Silence immediately engulfed both sides of the phone. Tears rolling down Vivian's chin brushed a little of her beautiful makeup. Their celebration was like the taste of a hot pepper soup with lots of meat, as they both knew that James's departure would keep them apart for months. However, they were determined to make it work at all costs. Vivian promised to visit him as often as possible, and they planned to stay connected despite the distance. Well, you know, the distance between the United States and Nigeria is not your mate. If you don't have money to sustain international calls to the United States, you should respect yourself and use WhatsApp or Facebook because MTN will show you something. James's departure was a mixture of excitement and heartache. His family, immensely proud of his achievement, threw a small farewell party. Vivian stood by his side, her eyes filled with pride and love. James's mother hugged him tightly, whispering words of encouragement and blessing. At the airport, James and Vivian shared a tearful goodbye. "We'll make it through this, James. I believe in us," Vivian said, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. She wished it were possible to leave with him at once. "I know we will, Vivian. Thank you for everything you have done for me and my family," James replied, holding her close. "I will be back for us. Please don't forget to always pray for us and call when free." "I will not. Be careful out there. You are on a mission, please do not lose focus. Call me if you need anything. I am here to help with anything you ask of me." Her voice revealed the unconditional love she nursed for James. As the four wheels of the plane propelled its metallic body into the sky, James looked out the window, feeling a mix of emotions. He was leaving behind everything he knew and loved for the unknown, but was also stepping into a future filled with possibilities. The scholarship was not just a personal achievement, but a chance to uplift his family and community. Life in the United States was challenging at first. You will only know this once you step out of Nigeria. James had to adjust to a new culture, a different academic system, and the absence of his loved ones. Nevertheless, he was determined to succeed. He threw himself into his studies, driven by the desire to honor his family's sacrifices and the support Vivian had given him. Vivian and James stayed connected through frequent calls and video chats. Their love for each other remained strong, even across the miles. Vivian visited him during her breaks, and those moments were cherished, providing much-needed respite from their busy lives. James excelled in his studies, earning top grades and the admiration of his professors. He became involved in community outreach programs, determined to make the most of his time abroad. His dedication and passion for education shone through, and he began to gain recognition for his efforts. As James approached the end of his master's program, he started planning his return to Nigeria. The James of yesterday was no longer the James of today. However, things are always going to be different ever again. Not with Vivian's ex-boyfriend back in her life.